everybody. It's Sam Teele from Cloud Adoption Solutions. I'm an account executive there. You may have gotten a cold call or a LinkedIn message or an email from me talking about our Salesforce Metadata Performance Analysis. So on today's YouTube video, I'm going to be walking you guys through an anonymized version that I put together for a life sciences firm between 500 and 1,000 employees, as well as an anonymized qualitative ROI analysis that I made as a supplemental resource to that performance analysis. And then at the end, we'll talk about if you'd like us to do the same for you, how to go about doing that. But without further ado, I'm going to get right into it today. So the Salesforce performance analysis that we're going to be reviewing today is for the fictional company Life Sciences Anonymous that I have made up. But this is a real analysis that's been anonymized and can give you a sense of what one of these might look like should we ever run one for your team. Everyone starts off with an org at a glance slide. This just gives you a quick snapshot as to the overall health of your org. It takes a look at what kind of data you have, what kind of automation types you have. Are they, at risk of being sunset as Salesforce, ends support for process builder or workflow rules and moves everything to flows? Do you have a lot of heavy code and Apex triggered, automations that add complexity to the org? And, what kind of objects do you have? Are they utilizing a lot of custom fields? For today's YouTube video, I'm going to be flying through these a little faster than I would otherwise normally, just to kind of give you a sense of the information that would be found. But should we ever do this for your team, it's a very thorough process. Sometimes it takes us, half an hour to get through the slide show. So then we take a look at, your interface technology, what kind of breakdown between classic pages and lightning pages. One very important thing on the bottom of this slide, we take a look at your permissions. How many different profile sets and permission sets, profiles and permission sets do you have? Which on the next slide, we go into further detail and we take a look at the breakdown. So one thing that we always like to assess is the ratio of admins to standard users and the ratio of number of users to different types of permission sets. And a lot of times the recommendation here from 90% of the teams that we do this for is to simply standardize and to reduce redundancy. We see a lot that people add them all the time and then they forget to do their house cleaning. It ends up that they have hundreds of permission sets for not even 100 users. So that's one thing that you might take away from this. We go into more depth rather about the different types of automations. And again, we give recommendations for, what to do to improve it. In this case, consolidating some of those legacy automations, strengthening the governance, and, optimizing data quality. We take a look at tech debt. Do you have a lot of it? And if you do, how severe is it? Again, like with every slide, we make a recommendation. We look at your field impact. Are your custom fields actually doing something that's critical to your automation or your process, or are they just there because somebody made them once and then nobody ever did anything with it? And, sometimes the recommendation here is sort of a field rationalization where we go through the different custom fields and, say, do we need this? Don't we need this? Why do we need this? And let's make sure that people are using them if we do need it. We take a look at your reporting. This is something very common. Almost every org that I've ever seen has a bunch of reports that don't ever get run or haven't been run in a really long time. And again, that's generally just some maintenance stuff that people create different types of reports when they need them. But sometimes you run into a challenge when there's hundreds of reports in the system, many that haven't been run in a long time, that somebody goes into the system to find the report that they need. They can't find it because there's too many reports, and so they make a new one, only compounding the problem. And generally speaking, in these instances, we recommend sort of a same idea as the previous, a rationalization of the different reports and a consolidation so that people can find what they're looking for more easily. We look at inactive metadata. And, we look at your change history. Have your changes been made in large batches in, short time frames, or have they, generally been made in, drip fashion or something more controlled? Generally speaking, we like to recommend that you make changes more slowly over time. It just has less risk introduced. And also you can isolate the variable more easily when you're adding, less changes at a time than if you make 50 changes once a year, all in the same night. We look at your utilization of different objects and custom objects. Are people actually filling these in? How often are they filling them in? So, that's something very interesting that we take a look at. And this really speaks directly to your user adoption. Now, so like I said, these reports sometimes take a long time to go through. And then after I provided them to whoever I'm providing them to, they pass them internally. And I always tell them, if somebody's very busy, you can tell them to fast forward to slide number 13 in this case. It can be different depending on what slides are included in the deck based on what's pertinent from the analysis. But I always like to give a slide where we overview, sort of the synthesis of the entire presentation. What were the strengths existing in your org, which I always look for. I don't look just to find problems, just to say that there are problems and then tell you need to work with us. I try to be very, unbiased in my assessment. Here are the things that you're doing well. Here are the opportunities that we see where you can improve those things. And here is the recommended course of action that will, make those improvements. So that's, if somebody's very busy, they can feel free to skip to that slide. And then we talk about the next steps and ways that we can work with you, be it, a project-based engagement with a fixed scope or some kind of bucket. So throughout the process of creating this, I learned that it's a very technical presentation and can be appreciated by people with, a lot of hands-on system knowledge. These are your admin, these are your business and revenue operations people. Sometimes sales leaders or business development leaders, they want something that's a little bit more straightforward. So as an addendum to the anonymized performance analysis, I'm going to take a look at a new document that I've recently made that I can also make for you as an addendum to your analysis as well, which is a qualitative ROI analysis. So essentially, this is going to pull from the performance analysis the most important areas for optimization, and it'll cite which page on the analysis that this is coming from, and it's going to tell you how long that change is going to take to make, we estimate, as well as the business case for doing it. Because, some people don't really care about, duplicitous fields or unused objects or poor field utilization. They want to know, how does this affect our business in terms of, dollars and cents, let's say. So this really is an add-on piece to that streamlines it and really articulates the business ROI case of making these changes. So you can see it outlines the most important changes. Typically, we see the heaviest lift, and for most organizations, is going to be in that profile and permission set streamlining. Also critically important for security and just for the ease of onboarding new employees in the future. So that's a very critical component that often you'll find. And then, sort of like we've done with the synthesis version at the end of the performance analysis, we give an overall organizational benefit of making all of these optimizations, as well as the recommended course of action that you can take. So, in this case, I think that the estimate added up to 66 to 80 hours. So you said, okay, 100-hour bucket should cover almost all of these. And, we can get you a slightly better rate versus the 60-hour rate. Obviously, however you'd like to work with us is totally fine, and you're not obligated to do so by any means. But I think this is giving a good overview for the real value add of this performance analysis and the benefit of doing it for your company. And I'd love to talk to you about, having us run this. It's a pretty straightforward process. All we need in order to run the analysis is to have, a user with admin access created for our org. Generally speaking, we only need access for a couple of days. We hook it up to a tool that is able to do a metadata analysis, but it doesn't store any information, so there's no issues. And, we're happy to sign any NDA, or we also have a mutual NDA that we use at times. But, just to establish, trust between us, we're happy to sign any documentation prior to being granted access to your org. But it's a pretty straightforward process. Once we get whatever you need signed, once we get access, it takes us about a couple of days to put one of these together. We hop on a call, we review all of the findings in real time with you to be able to answer any questions. Also to get any context from you that can explain what the data is telling us, because sometimes you know things that we don't from actually being inside the org. And then we make our recommendations. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you'd like to reach out to me, my email is sam@cloudadoption.solutions, and my phone number is 412-968-6099. And I'd be happy to talk to you about how one of these analyses may be beneficial for your company in identifying the current health of your Salesforce instance, as well as the low-hanging fruit that is some quick wins. Thanks everybody for joining me today. I hope that you got some value out of it and hope to hear from you.